The very first question in Western philosophy was, what are the traits of the world as a whole? Heraclitus thought the world was defined by change. He's the guy who said you can't step in the same river twice. And Pythagoras thought the world was defined by beauty. In the Buddhist tradition, the first noble truth is life is suffering. Wesley from The Princess Bride says life is pain. And Forrest Gump says life is a box of chocolates full of pleasure, but you can't predict it. So, from a perspective of a psychologist, could this be summarized as a bunch of hyperbolic expression like, you have a bad day, the world is a bad place? Or is there genuine disagreement on what sort of world this is?
Dr. Jer Clifton is an empirical researcher at the University of Pennsylvania. He and his team study how beliefs about the world's overall traits impact daily life, and where these beliefs originate.
Humans don't form perceptions based on what's objectively true of the world. Instead, our senses gives us these little bits and pieces, and what our brain is doing is figuring out as quickly as it can how to fit those pieces together in a way that makes sense to us based on pre-existing ideas about how the world works. So we are trying to study world beliefs to figure out which ones tend to hurt you and which ones tend to help you, regardless of which one is true. We call these beliefs primal world beliefs or primals. You can see our work as an attempt to figure out what are the basic underlying dimensions of worldview. So our analysis didn't just rely on what people explicitly said, but literally what are all the qualities that humans care about that they could ascribe to the world as a whole. So we looked at 80,000 tweets, we got over 1,800 quotes from 358 of the most influential texts in the history of the world. We looked at the most used 840 adjectives in contemporary American English. We conducted 10 focus groups in all 4 biggest world religions. We reviewed the literature in 6 different disciplines: psychology, philosophy, political science, cultural anthropology, art history, and comparative religion.
Dr. Clifton's team identified 234 diverse questions about the world as a whole, and halfway into an 18-month research period, they noticed that no additional unique ideas were emerging. They had reached a saturation point and felt reasonably sure that each unique way to see the world had been accounted for.
All humans, or at least the humans we've studied so far, vary when it comes to 26 primal world beliefs. These beliefs are stable across time, and they're hidden. You can't tell what people's beliefs are by looking at them. And primal world beliefs are massively correlated to how we each live our lives. Most of these cluster into 3 main clusters. There's the belief the world is safe versus dangerous, enticing versus dull, and alive versus mechanistic. So, safe versus dangerous is extremely tied to being depressed and to being anxious and fearful. People who see the world as dangerous are less outgoing. They tend not to trust people. The belief the world is enticing versus dull is tied to being curious, to exploring the world, to taking risks, to being social, to having higher well-being. And folks who see the world as alive think that everything happens for a reason and on purpose. They think the world is interacting with them, sending them messages, and responding to what they do. They think the world needs their help for something important. So, of course, people who have crappy lives are going to see the world as a crappy place and be depressed. Gosh, why do we need all these researchers to do all this nonsense? That's just objectively false. We find that lots of people with amazing lives see the world as a bad place. And lots of people with objectively really bad lives see the world as a really good place.
Dr. Clifton and his team are aware of 38 independent research efforts studying the impact and origins of primal world beliefs, including many of the most well-regarded researchers in the world. A tidal wave of research is coming, all exploring one simple question.
Is it a tragedy to have been born into a terrible world? Or is the opportunity to be in this world this incredibly wondrous blessing? That's kind of the central question that we all have to respond to, and my job is not to say which one is true, but I can give you some insight as to how your answer might affect your life.